Hi YouTube, this is Rose, and this video is Psychopaths, Sociopaths, and what is the difference? Who are they? What are they? And why are they so dangerous? This is a first in a series that I will be sharing on my channel about psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissistic personality disorder, demonic possession, and the Jezebel spirit. Thank you so much for your time. I ask if you're not subscribed to please subscribe, and please comment and let me know what you think. This first video I will be sharing is from the End Time News Report channel with Jake Morphonius. I am very well pleased with his work, and he has given me permission to share his work, and I will be leaving the link below, and I highly recommend that you check out his channel. Thank you, Jake. I will also be leaving the link for this amazing music. Thank you so much.
There are people in our world who have a great deal of wealth and influence, people who share the common agenda of creating a ruling class that controls the entire world. That's what they're after, world control. These people are madmen. They are, in the strictest clinical sense of the word, psychopaths. And that's the subject of today's video. I'm going to present this information to you in two sections. In part one, I'm going to explain to you exactly what a psychopath is. And then in part two, I'm going to identify some of the psychopaths in this New World Order system and how they divide up into factions to fight, not only against you and me, but against each other. So let's begin. In an article in Psychology Today magazine, Dr. William Herstein wrote this, quote, "In the early 1800s, doctors who worked with mental patients began to notice that some of their patients who appeared outwardly normal had what they termed a moral depravity or moral insanity, in that they seemed to possess no sense of ethics or of the rights of other people." The term psychopath was first applied to these people around 1900. The term was changed to sociopath in the 1930s to emphasize the damage that they do to society. But currently, researchers have returned to using the term psychopath. Some of them use that term to refer to a more serious disorder, while continuing to use sociopath to refer to a less dangerous people who are seen more as products of their environment, including their upbringing. And that's the end of the quote. Dr. Herstein goes on to explain that identifying a psychopath involves comparing the individual and his or her behaviors to a list of criteria. The psychological community calls this list the Revised Psychopathy Checklist. There's a similar list called the Psychopathic Personality Inventory, or the PPI. If we overlay these two lists, we come up with a core set of criteria. I'm going to run through these 9 items with you. These are the traits of a psychopath. Number 1, they are uncaring. Psychopaths are callous and they lack empathy for others, or in other words, they are cold-hearted people. They don't care about how other people feel. They have extremely high tolerance thresholds for the suffering of other people. So while some people can look at the heartache of others who are suffering, a psychopath, they don't care. They don't see it, they don't feel it, they don't care. Second trait, a psychopath has shallow emotions. Specifically, a psychopath doesn't experience feelings like normal people, things like shame or guilt or embarrassment. This is why some psychopaths can suffer terrible indignities and humiliations on a grand scale and still put their faces forward proudly with no shame at all. Third trait, psychopaths are extremely irresponsible. In that context, they're notoriously unreliable, and they externalize blame toward others for their own faults and for their own mistakes. You can think, for example, of Hillary Clinton blaming everybody but herself for her being the most hated woman in America and losing 2 presidential elections. Fourth, psychopaths use insincere speech. That can be anything from superficial charm or sickly sweet flattery that wins people over to them. Or it could be outright pathological lying with no remorse. A psychopath will con other people for personal profit or even for pleasure. Do you guys know anyone who can lie straight to your face, tell you outrageous lies, and still seem perfectly at ease with themselves, feeling no remorse at all for their dishonesty, like they have no conscience. Well, that's one of the traits of a psychopath. Fifth, psychopaths are notoriously overconfident, meaning they have this grandiose sense of self-worth. They see themselves as being superior to everyone else, and that strength of personal conviction in the psychopath's own exceptionality can be intoxicating for people with sycophantic personalities, those who tend to idolize people based not so much on their actual deeds, but on the idol's boastful claims about themselves. But of course, we saw this same thing back when the liberal sycophants worshipped Barack Obama as the coming of the Messiah. Remember that Obama walked around with his nose stuck up so high in the air that he was breathing a different atmosphere from the rest of us. Oh boy, 2008. We redid it in 2016, didn't we? Number 6, psychopaths experience a narrowing of attention. This is a core deficit that is also known in psychopathy as response modulation. But if we use more layman's terms, we could just call it laser beam focus. The psychopath hones in on some objective and pursues it with complete abandon until it's achieved. And that's partly because the psychopath doesn't modulate his actions based on changing circumstances during the course of the pursuit of the goal. For example, a normal person, let's say he might want to go cut his grass with a lawnmower, wants to get it done as quickly as possible because he's got other things to do. But if while he's pushing that lawnmower, he sees in his path that a baby bird has fallen out of its nest from the tree in the yard, he'll stop and help the bird. But the psychopath will, in the same situation, they won't allow that event to interrupt his plans. He'll simply run over the bird. This trait could hypothetically be a good thing when applied by a normal person, but when it's coupled with the other traits of a psychopath, it only makes that person that much more dangerous. Consider how Donald Trump, for example, how he decided, come hell or high water, he was going to strike Syria with those Tomahawk cruise missiles because of the alleged chemical weapon attack by Assad, despite the fact that there was a stunning lack of evidence to validate any claims that Assad was guilty of the crime. It was completely irrelevant to Trump. He had laser beam focus. Number 7, psychopaths are selfish. They exhibit a pathological egocentricity. Or in other words, they aren't capable of true love or concern for another person's well-being. They just use other people in relationships the way that a parasite uses a host. The parasite will suck the life out of the host until the thing dies, and then it'll move on to its next victim without caring. So just think of the long streak of women, for example, that Bill Clinton used throughout his adult life and cast aside as if they were meaningless to him. Number 8, psychopaths don't plan for the future. They certainly have the skills to make long-term plans. I'm not saying that they don't do any planning. And in fact, they do set long-term goals, which they will pursue until doomsday. But because they can't empathize with other people, they don't typically foresee how other people or circumstances are going to respond to their actions. For example, the New World Order is currently experiencing significant worldwide backlash, a big populist uprising, because they didn't anticipate how the public would actually care enough about this and about themselves and their own societies to take a stand against this globalist agenda that is destroying their national borders and forcing unwanted multiculturalism on all of the different nations and the peoples. So that's an example of how psychopaths don't plan for the future. Number 9, the last common trait among psychopaths is violence. Psychopaths typically have dissocial personality disorders, which includes a very low tolerance to frustration. So when a normal person starts to get frustrated, he may say something obnoxious, some flippant remark, whatever. But when a psychopath feels frustrated, she'll throw dishes and curse. For example, at innocent Secret Service details standing there doing nothing. Hillary was notorious for that. Psychopaths can go into rages, and they're very aggressive. Think of former Obama Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel screaming at a congressman over legislation while standing totally naked in the congressional gym room. He was unaware, standing there in the showers, of how the other person might feel being screamed at over legislation. These are the 9 primary traits of psychopaths. Everyone in the world has some faults, some shortcomings, personal quirks or bad habits that they struggle with. But after doing something inappropriate, a normal person will feel a guilty conscience, realize that they hurt another person's feelings, perhaps, and will usually try to make amends for their own poor choices. But a psychopath doesn't even know that he's done something wrong. All he knows is that he is better than you, he deserves more than you. He will take what you have without concern for your feelings. He'll use violence or intimidation against you if necessary to get what he wants. And he won't think twice about the potential consequences of his own actions. Now, I've mentioned a few people in this video, like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, who are psychopaths, and they truly are. But when I talk about the psychopaths of the New World Order, those people pushing for world domination, people like Trump and Hillary are small fish in the pond. To find out who some of the big fish are, make sure to subscribe to my channel and watch for the second episode to come out on Tuesday. In the meantime, I'd like it if my viewers would share with me some of your thoughts on the subject of psychopaths down in the comments section below. I look forward to reading what you have to say. For the End Times News Report, I'm Jake Morphonios.